And today, there's renewed privacy concerns here in the U.S. We've learned that for a second time, the NSA has illegally obtained calls and text messages of average American citizens. This latest incident is being called an error, but it's raising eyebrows across the country nonetheless about the agency's phone surveillance program. Let's turn now to RT's Rachel Blevins with the latest development. Rachel.
Manila, the National Security Agency was caught illegally collecting records from innocent Americans through a controversial program that is supposed to be used for counterterrorism purposes, and this is not the first time it has happened. According to new documents obtained by the American Civil Liberties Union, last year, between October 3rd and October 12th, NSA compliance reports show an unidentified phone company provided the NSA with records that it should not have received because those records were not related to terrorism suspects. The reports were obtained through a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit and first reported on by the Wall Street Journal. Because they are heavily redacted, it's still not clear exactly how many records the NSA collected without authorization. It is also not clear how many times it has happened before. The latest records suggest that the NSA was guilty of at least one other over-collection episode in the same year, which had a significant effect on Americans' privacy because of the volumes of records that were obtained. In response, the NSA reportedly deleted the program's entire database in June 2018. Then reports from earlier this year stated that the NSA had quietly shut down a system that analyzes logs of Americans' domestic calls and text messages. But the NSA has yet to publicly acknowledge any of this, and despite repeated claims that the purpose of the surveillance program is to catch terrorism suspects, privacy advocates question whether allowing the government to have so much power is actually making Americans any safer. In a statement, the ACLU argued, quote, "The NSA's collection of Americans' call records is too sweeping, the compliance problems too many, and evidence of the program's value all but non-existent. There is no justification for leaving the surveillance power in the NSA's hands." Now, Section 215 of the Patriot Act, which has been used to justify the mass collection of Americans' phone records under the approval of a secret foreign intelligence surveillance court, is set to expire at the end of this year. While there are only a handful of members of Congress who have been outspoken in their criticism of the NSA's practices, there is also concern as reports signal the White House plans to push for a permanent renewal of the surveillance law despite years of privacy concerns. As the latest revelations show, there is also a problem with oversight, and despite the fact that the NSA has been caught illegally collecting private information from American citizens yet again, it does not appear that anyone has been held accountable. Manila, back to you.
Rachel Blevins, thank you for that. For more on these new NSA revelations, let's turn now to investigative journalist Ben Swann. Hello, Ben, and welcome to 2013. Here we are discussing this stuff again.
All over again.
So this time, though, the NSA says they're themselves purging, millions of Americans' phone records because essentially that they, accidentally collected the data in this counterterrorism program, as they always do. They say, my bad. Do you buy it?
No, and I think, it's that old adage that says, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, or shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think we're seeing right now is this situation where this is not the first time, the second time, even the third time that we know that this has happened in just the last 2 years. 2017, we know what happened. It happened at least twice in 2018. So at what point are we as the public going to say, clearly the NSA is still collecting information that they're not supposed to be collecting, number one. And number two, and here's the bigger question, why is there no penalty? What is the consequence for doing this? It is illegal behavior. If it is illegal, what is the accountability for those who are collecting it? Whether it's with the telecom companies that are giving too much information, someone should be prosecuted on that end. Or on the government side where they're collecting information, someone should be prosecuted on that end. So either way, if there is no accountability for those who continue to break the law, because that's what they're doing, then why would they ever stop doing that?
Yeah, so this data collection program, it's kind of this watered-down, fragmented version of the one Edward Snowden released 6 years ago, which is due to sunset later this year in December. How do you see this playing out between now and December, especially if President Trump is over here saying, he'll keep this going indefinitely?
Right. So the president's making it sound like he's going to keep it going indefinitely. Obviously, it's a terrible decision to do so. The program has never yet yielded even one single terrorist operation or individual terrorist. And that is according to the NSA themselves. They don't even make a claim that it's ever been successful. So if it's never been successful, it continues to violate the law. And let's face it, it's an antiquated system. The NSA is collecting lots of information on us separately from this program. It is actually an antiquated program, and that's the only reason that the NSA has said that they don't really need it anymore. They haven't said why they don't need it. And the reason that they don't need it is because they have other technology and other ways of doing it now, and yet the president wants to keep it in place.
So he just, obviously, the president recently just finally addressed this issue in particular, in the sense that he wants to, keep it going indefinitely. And we've heard him come out strongly against Huawei, making claims that Huawei is in cahoots with the Chinese government, that they'll collect data on, Americans if Americans use Huawei phones. So here's the crux of the problem. Huawei there's been no proof. There's been no proof that Huawei would take part in something like that. But here's proof that the U.S. is doing this. So how do you counter this claim from the president? I mean, this is the crux of the Huawei U.S. government problem, right?
It absolutely is. And consider what the claim is that the U.S. keeps making about Huawei, that Huawei will, they say, take user data information and they will pass it to the Chinese government. That's what the claim is. And that the Chinese government will force them to do so. And yet, what we know about the NSA and about this program and these accidents that keep happening, the NSA keeps saying, well, we're not actually taking the information. It's the telecommunications companies, the phone companies, that are giving us more information than what we actually wanted. At some points, 600 million more records than they were asking for. And so you're exactly right. It is entirely the problem that the U.S. claims about Huawei is exactly what's happening again with telecom companies here in the U.S. But again, I got to say it again, there is no consequence for the action. Therefore, there's no reason to believe it would stop happening.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's an accident when it happens over and over and over every year. And as the Snowden revelations showed us, it's no longer an accident if it keeps happening. All right.
And one other thing on that. Other thing on that. And by the way, as much as it keeps happening, the NSA never outs themselves and admits, hey, by the way, we made a mistake. It only comes to light because the ACLU or some group sues in order to find it. They never come forward and say, by the way, we once again violated your civil rights.
Well, Ben, what kid ever comes to you and says, yeah, I broke mom's vase?
Yeah, they're not kids.
That's the scary part. All right, Ben, as always, appreciate your take on this. Ben Swann, thank you.
Manila, thanks.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.